I've never liked weddings. Not because I don't believe in love. There was a time I gave my whole heart to it. But weddings have a way of stripping away with shine, peeling back the careful polish until the truth of people quietly surfaces, especially when you aren't the bride standing at the center of it all. That afternoon, the California sun rested gently over the Napa Hills, spilling a warm golden glow across satin-draped curtains and the pale cream arch woven with flowers. The resort grounds were immaculate, curated down to every last detail. Rows of white silk-covered chairs faced the altar. Vanilla-scented candles flickered softly in the breeze, and champagne flutes stood in perfect alignment along the banquet tables, waiting to be raised in celebration. My husband, Ethan, stood beside me, carefully adjusting his pale pink silk tie, chosen to match the wedding's refined color palette. He looked composed, confident, entirely in his element. I stood next to him with our 8-month-old daughter, Mia, balanced on my hip. Her cheeks glowed softly in the sunlight, her tiny fingers curling into the fabric of my dress. She had no idea that with every passing minute, her mother felt like the air was slowly being pressed out of her lungs. I hadn't wanted to attend. Mia was teething, waking up crying night after night, and I hadn't slept properly in nearly 3 weeks. My body ached, my patience was thin, and my heart felt fragile. But Ethan had been firm, unmoved by exhaustion or reason. "This is Mason's wedding, my little brother. Don't mess this up. Try to look decent." So I slipped into the wine-colored dress he selected, applied my makeup hurriedly in the car, and wore a smile I'd rehearsed so often that my face no longer questioned it. We were seated near the front, just behind the bride and groom. Ethan's posture straightened with pride each time Mason glanced our way. I gently rocked Mia in my arms, coaxing her into sleep, swaying carefully so I wouldn't disturb anyone around us. When I reached for Ethan's hand, my fingers barely brushed his before he recoiled, pulling away as though startled. He leaned toward me, his voice low but edged with warning. "Please don't embarrass me today. You're just the babysitter. Look good, stay quiet, and don't draw attention." The words settled into me like something permanent, etched along my spine. Something inside cracked, not because I hadn't expected it, but because I realized how far things had gone. I let out a small laugh, automatic and hollow, a shield against the pain splintering beneath the surface. I glanced around at the other women seated nearby, wives in elegant dresses, smiling easily beside their husbands. I wondered if they had ever been spoken to like that, if they had ever felt reduced to an accessory, present to support, to bear children, to maintain appearances, and then slowly fade into silence. I didn't cry, I simply held Mia closer, as though she was the only thing anchoring me to existence. The clinking of glasses pulled me back. My mother-in-law stood to speak, reminiscing about Ethan and Mason's childhood, her voice thick with sentiment. My father-in-law followed with jokes that landed politely but without warmth. Ethan rose for his speech, delivering words I could have written myself. Family, love, responsibility. A picture-perfect story, polished and complete, as though no one had ever been overlooked or diminished. Applause echoed across the softly lit space as he returned to his seat, brushing past me without meeting my eyes, pulling away again like my presence startled him. Then the microphone passed back to Mason. "Does anyone else want to say a few words? Family or friends?" Silence followed. I exhaled, relief washing through me, until Mason's gaze landed on us and he smiled. "Sophia, sister-in-law, would you like to say something? You're part of the family now, after all." My body went still. Ethan snapped his head toward me, his face drained of color, eyes sharp with warning. "Don't say anything," he muttered. "This isn't your moment." My heart pounded in my chest. Mia shifted slightly, her head resting against my shoulder, grounding me. I handed her gently to Ethan's cousin beside me and stood. The microphone felt cool and foreign in my hand. I didn't look back. I stepped forward, aware of every pair of eyes turning toward me. No music filled the silence, no inner voice tried to stop me. Only one sentence looped relentlessly. "You're just the babysitter. Look good, stay quiet, and don't draw attention." I took a breath. "Thank you for letting me speak." My voice trembled at first, but the stillness held it steady. I didn't plan to say anything today, but some things need to be said so others don't have to keep carrying silence alone. Whispers rippled through the crowd. I noticed my mother-in-law squinting, Ethan leaning forward as if he might stand. I didn't stop. I remembered my own wedding 6 years ago, a day just like this, filled with light and vows and belief. I truly thought I'd found someone who saw me as a partner, not just a role. I looked at Ethan. He didn't smile. He didn't deny it. But there comes a day when you wake up and realize you've become a shadow that folds napkins, changes diapers, times meals perfectly, and smiles just enough to keep things looking right, while slowly forgetting who she used to be. The room was silent. Glasses paused. Ethan sat rigid, his jaw clenched. I'm not saying this to complain. I'm saying it because someone here has looked in the mirror and no longer recognized herself. I forgot my laugh. I forgot what it felt like to have someone reach for my hand because they wanted to, not because it was expected. I turned to Mason and his bride. "Mason, I hope you and Emily always truly see each other, not through photographs or accomplishments, but in the tired days, the quiet arguments, the moments when words fall short. When people stop seeing each other, marriage stops being a home and becomes a performance." I handed the microphone back and stepped away. My legs shook, but I didn't slow down. I didn't look back once. Ethan didn't move. When I picked Mia up again, he glanced at me sideways, his expression unreadable. I carried her out through the doors into the empty courtyard. The sun was sinking low, the breeze carrying the scent of jasmine. I held her close and whispered, more to myself than anyone else, "I'm still here. I'm not invisible." I sat on a wooden bench beneath the wisteria, listening to birdsong blending with distant music. Time passed quietly until footsteps approached. Ethan appeared, irritation simmering beneath his calm. "What's wrong with you?" he demanded. I said nothing. He accused me of humiliation, of ruining his image, of making his family uncomfortable. When he reminded me who paid for the house and the car, the words landed like ice. I met his gaze steadily. "If the truth embarrasses you, then maybe that's something you need to face." I pushed Mia's stroller forward and walked away. He didn't follow. That night, after Mia slept, I stared at my reflection and saw someone different. Tired, yes, but awake. The next morning, while Ethan left for work, I sat at the table with an old notebook and made a list. Finances, contacts, rent, support groups. Each line steadied my hand. When I opened my old laptop and saw my design software load, something inside stirred. I began reaching out, rebuilding quietly. New bank account, new plans, a new sense of self. Then the email arrived, an old client, a real opportunity, enough to breathe again. I worked late into the nights rediscovering pieces of myself I'd buried. When another message came, offering a referral, I didn't dismiss it. I prepared. I updated my resume. I uploaded my work. I made myself visible again. The next morning, an email arrived with a subject line that made my heart race. "Sophia, opportunity is waiting. This is the first step." I clicked the link. Her company, which supports nonprofit organizations, was looking to redesign the entire website for a community education campaign. Deadline, 4 weeks. Compensation, $1,400. I spent the whole morning hesitating, but in the end, when I looked at Mia asleeping, her tiny hand wrapped tightly around my finger like the last thread tying me back to myself, I hit submit. 3 days later, I got a reply. A Zoom interview was scheduled for Tuesday at 10 a.m. I planned to ask my kind neighbor to help watch Mia. She'd once said, "If you ever need anything, just knock." The night before the interview, I chose the simplest white blouse I had, ironed it neatly, and buttoned it all the way up. No fancy makeup, just a little tinted balm. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw a woman who had once broken but was standing again, one step at a time. Behind me, the kitchen was still and silent. Ethan hadn't even noticed what I was doing, and maybe that was the clearest reason why I couldn't stay. I had begun stepping out of the shadows, and I knew there was no going back. The interview went smoother than I expected. I was still trembling when I turned off the camera. The interviewer, a woman named Jenna, smiled warmly and asked about my design style, how I managed deadlines, and how I balanced work with a young child. I didn't hide anything. I told the truth, that I had left the field for family reasons, that I was starting over from almost zero. She nodded and said, "We're looking for someone who understands persistence more than perfection, and I think you're that person." That evening, I cooked dinner as usual, still lightheaded from the feeling of touching something I'd thought I'd lost. Ethan came home later than usual, smelling faintly of unfamiliar cologne, his eyes scanning me. "What did you do today?" he asked casually, but his eyes were sharp. "Stayed home, took care of Mia," I said without blinking. "Just stayed home. Where do you think I went?" He said nothing, just nodded and walked into his office. But when I walked past his door with the laundry basket, I heard a faint click. The sound of him opening the laptop I normally used. A chill ran through me. That night, I checked my phone and found a strange app running in the background, Family Safe Pro. I hadn't installed it. I was sure the app had access to my location, messages, even the microphone. I deleted it immediately, then checked the laptop. The browser history had been wiped clean. Every design file in my folder labeled work_203 was gone. I couldn't breathe. Ethan didn't yell or slam doors, but the way he silently invaded my world, deleted my data, tracked me, it made my skin crawl. The next morning, my mom called. Her voice was calm but cautious. "Sophia, Ethan called me yesterday." I said nothing. "He said you've been off, tired, depressed, talking to yourself, neglecting Mia. He says you're overworked and won't rest." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, listen to me. I'm completely fine. You know me." "I know, but you need to be careful. If he starts saying these things to others, you need to have proof, just in case things get worse." I put the phone down, my body cold. Ethan didn't just want to track me, he wanted to make my words sound irrational, to plant doubt. If I spoke up, people might think I was unstable. This was his way of preparing, crafting a "Sophia's losing it" narrative. That night, after Mia fell asleep, I began gathering evidence. I printed bank statements from my personal account, saved screenshots of emails with clients and photos of design work I had submitted. I took screenshots of messages with Lauren, payment receipts, everything. I created a USB folder called Blue Nest Backup, then hid it beneath the detergent in the laundry room. I stashed a second copy inside a Ziploc bag tucked into the vegetable bin in the fridge. Next, I started researching temporary housing options for single moms. There was a support center just 20 minutes away. I sent a message. "I have a young child. I'm not being physically hurt, but I feel controlled. Can I get counseling?" They replied within the hour. "Of course, you don't have to be hurt to need support. When you're ready, we're here." I bought an old phone at a local electronics store, paid in cash. I used it only to contact the shelter and receive work emails. I set a unique password and hid it beneath towels in a drawer. I slowly started cleaning out the closet, selling old clothes, hiding the cash in a small locked box tucked into Mia's stroller. I packed an extra water bottle, spare diapers, instant snacks, and a few baby outfits into a small travel bag. One evening, as I passed Ethan's office, he looked up. "You've been going out a lot lately. Walks, groceries, letting Mia get some fresh air?" He didn't say anything, but his eyes didn't leave me. I knew he suspected something, and I also knew I didn't have much time left. That night, I lay in bed with my eyes wide open. Beside me, Ethan slept peacefully. His arm rested on his own pillow, not touching mine. I could hear the ticking of the wall clock clearly, and in each tick, I planned my exit, not in words, but in action. No panic, no explosions, just quiet steps out of a gilded cage. That final night arrived more quietly than I imagined. No arguments, no warning signs. Ethan had dinner, turned on the TV, even asked, "Want me to bring lunch home tomorrow?" I smiled softly, nodded, and said, "Whatever you like." But inside, everything was already in place. At 2:37 a.m., I slowly slipped out of bed. Ethan was on his side, snoring lightly, breathing steady. I grabbed my phone and opened the preset alarm app, a map to the Women's Support Center about 50-minute drive away. I walked to Mia's crib. She was still sound asleep, her tiny hand loosely gripping the blanket's edge. I leaned down, kissed her forehead, and wrapped her in the soft fleece blanket I'd packed earlier. No need to turn on the light. I'd walked this path in the dark 100 times. The bag was ready: ID documents, Mia's immunization records, clothes for 3 days, a bit of cash, a bank card, and the USB with all my work files. I carried everything downstairs, silent as a shadow. At 3:58 a.m., I opened the back door. It didn't creak. I had oiled the hinges last week. The cool night breeze swept in, carrying the scent of oak from the small backyard. I stepped out, holding Mia close, and locked the door behind me. Not a sound. As the engine started, I felt my heartbeat sync with its hum. The map lit up with clear directions. Streetlights slid across the windshield like calm breaths, carrying me farther away from the house that turned me into a shadow. By the time I turned onto the gravel road leading to the shelter, the sky was starting to soften. A pink-orange strip peeked over the horizon, hinting at a new dawn. Not another day of silent breakfasts and suspicious stares. A woman stood waiting at the gate, about 50, with silvering hair but bright, kind eyes. Her name tag read, Martha, Intake Coordinator. "Are you Sophia?" I nodded, nearly breaking down just hearing someone say my name without a command attached. "We've been expecting you. Come in. This place is safe." I followed her into the main building. The lights in the lobby were soft, the walls painted in gentle pastels, and everything was quiet in the most comforting way. Not the tense silence I had lived in, but a purposeful stillness, one that allowed space to finally hear yourself. Martha led me to a small room on the second floor. There was a twin bed, a baby crib, and a window that opened to a lavender garden. "Rest. When you're ready, we can help you plan your next steps." I placed Mia in the crib. She was still asleep, her cheeks rosy, lips slightly parted as if dreaming of something peaceful. I pulled the sheer curtain, then sat down on the bed, and for the first time in years, I cried. Not of fear, but because I knew this time I had chosen myself. I didn't know what lay ahead. Ethan certainly wouldn't stay silent. He would twist the story, portray me as the unstable mother, and do everything he could to get Mia back. I knew the legal battle could be long, messy, and exhausting, but I also knew this time I wasn't alone. I had Lauren, who messaged me the next morning after I sent just one line. "I left." She called immediately and said, "I'm here. If you ever need a lawyer, an accountant, anything, just say the word." I had work waiting for me, a design project Jenna officially assigned. I had documentation proving I was stable, capable of raising my child and living independently. I had a plan, and this time I was in control of it. As the sunrise finally broke, I opened the window. The breeze carried lavender into the sheets. I looked down at Mia and whispered to myself, "Starting today, you'll grow up in your mother's choice, not her survival." 2 weeks later, I stood in the lobby of a small restaurant on the outskirts of Sacramento, where Thomas and Emily hosted a post-wedding gathering for family who couldn't attend the main ceremony. No grand flower arches, no live music or expensive champagne, just white tablecloths, homemade desserts, and a warm, familiar atmosphere. I had hesitated for a long time before accepting Thomas's invitation. When he called, his voice was as sincere as it had always been. "Sophia, what you said that day, people are still talking about it. I know today might feel sensitive, but could you share a little more? Emily and I would really love to hear it." I paused. "Will Richard be there?" "He will, but Sophia, if you have something to say, say it. This is a safe space." I thought I would say no, but I remembered Martha's eyes back at the shelter. Her words still echoed in my head every morning. We don't need to scream to be heard. Sometimes we just need to stand. And now I was standing here again, with a mic in hand, surrounded by familiar faces. Mia was at the back of the room, sleeping in Lauren's arms after a full feeding. Martha was here too, sitting in one of the last rows, nodding gently at me, a silent blessing. I took a deep breath. "Thank you for giving me the chance to stand here once more." My voice still trembled slightly, but the fear was gone. Last time I spoke about seeing each other in a marriage. Today I want to talk about something else, seeing yourself. I looked around the room and paused briefly at Richard, who stood beside his mother in a crisp shirt, arms crossed. He didn't smile, but he didn't look away either. I used to live in a house with every convenience, and yet I felt smaller every day. I wasn't hit, I wasn't starved, but I was worn down by quiet cuts of words, by looks that made me feel invisible, by the sense that I only existed to babysit, to cook, to maintain appearances. Not a single sound interrupted me. Even the clinking of silverware had stopped. I didn't leave because I stopped loving, I left because I realized love can't be one-sided. I used to believe that if I was patient enough, things would change, but the truth is, no one changes unless they face the consequences of their actions. I noticed Richard's shoulders tighten slightly, but he stayed still. I didn't walk away to get revenge, I walked away because I finally loved myself more than someone else's comfort, and because I want my daughter to grow up in a place where her mother is respected, not erased. A faint sigh rose from the back. I didn't know who it came from, but it felt like a ripple breaking through a wall of silence. I know some have told my story differently, that I'm unstable, selfish, that I destroyed a family. But today I stand here calm, clear, and not defending my choice, because the truth doesn't need defending. I bowed and handed back the mic. No one clapped, but no one had to. The silence carried enough weight for everyone to understand what was real. I walked toward the back of the room, where Lauren held Mia. As I approached, she stirred, opening her eyes with that pure, innocent gaze that always undid me. I picked her up, held her close to my chest. As I turned around, I passed Richard, and for the first time in years, I didn't lower my eyes. I looked him straight in the face, and he said nothing, not a word, because he knew. This time, I had nothing left to lose, and I had reclaimed everything that mattered, myself and my daughter. As I stepped outside, the late afternoon sunlight spilled through the windows, warming my face. I whispered softly into Mia's ear, "We've come a long way, and you know what? We've never been stronger." We returned to the shelter just as the sun dipped behind the hills, leaving a soft pink glow stretching across the sky. Mia had fallen asleep in the car, her head resting on my chest, breath steady and warm. I carried her gently inside, where the soft hallway light seemed already familiar with the footsteps of women reclaiming their lives. Martha opened the door to our room, her same patient smile on her face. "Thank you for coming, for saying what needed to be said." I nodded, my words caught in my throat. There was no need to say anything. She understood, the way people who've lived through the dark recognize each other. I placed Mia into the small, familiar crib, then sat on the edge of the bed, quietly watching her curl into sleep. The past days rewound in my mind like a film. The first moment I walked into this place with trembling hands, the sleepless nights spent editing designs, and the moment I spoke my truth in front of everyone, declaring I would no longer be invisible. It felt like it happened just yesterday, yet also like it had taken a lifetime. I reached for the old notebook on the desk, the one I'd written my first plan to leave, one step at a time. I flipped to the first page, still scrawled with early notes: personal account, small project, USB backup, emergency number. Then I turned to the last blank page and wrote just one line: "We are free." I don't know what lies ahead. My lawyer says the custody battle will be complicated. Ethan has hired an aggressive legal team and is trying to paint himself as the ideal father abandoned by a reckless wife. But this time, I'm ready. I have evidence. I have people willing to testify. Lauren, Jenna, and Martha. I have the truth, and I'm no longer afraid. A week after the reception, I officially started working part-time as a designer at Lauren's company remotely. The job wasn't just income, it was proof that I still had value, that I wasn't defined by how fast I changed diapers or how well I baked. I was a woman with talent, thoughts, and the right to choose. Every morning when Mia wakes up, I place her in her little chair, warm up her milk, and turn on soft jazz. Then I open my laptop, read emails, and adjust layouts for a public education campaign I'm designing. I do all this in a modest room with cream walls and a creaky ceiling fan, but I've never felt more complete. I chose this life not because it's easy, but because it's true to my heart.
One evening, as I was changing Mia's clothes, she suddenly grabbed my hand and beamed up at me, her eyes sparkling just like the first time I held her after she was born. I pulled her into my arms, buried my face in her hair, and whispered into her ear, "We've made it, baby, and I promise I'll never abandon myself again." In that moment, I felt no fear behind me. Only one thing stood as clearly as the moonlight pouring through the window. I had survived, and I had started over, not with regret, but with a free heart. No matter what the future holds, no matter how long the trial lasts, no matter what Ethan says to twist the truth, I will keep going. No more turning back, no more compromising. Because I chose the right thing, because I dared to rise, and most of all, because I remembered who I am. Sophia's story is a powerful reminder that freedom isn't just walking away from a place, it's reclaiming your worth after years of being erased. In silence and small steps, she chose to rise not from rage, but from love. What Sophia did wasn't easy, but it was necessary for every woman who's been overlooked, controlled, or made to believe there's no way out. Because the truth is, there is a way out, and it's worth taking. What do you think of Sophia's journey? Did she make the right choice to leave in order to protect herself and her daughter? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow our channel for more moving stories about family and resilience.